Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss the critical situation unfolding in Umm Al Kheir. Umm Al Kheir is a Palestinian village in the South Hebron Hills. And on October 28th, the Israeli Civil Administration issued 14 demolition orders threatening family homes, agricultural structures, and the village's community center. Less than an hour ago, maybe even a few minutes ago, the Israeli army was at the village and declared that the community center now falls under a closed military zone. You'll hear more from Eid about this. These demolitions could begin as soon as November 11th, next Tuesday, putting over 70 residents, including children, at immediate risk of displacement. This village has for many years endured constant harassment, illegal settler expansion, and repeated threats of displacement. So, following the murder of prominent teacher and peacemaker Auda, Israeli settlers set up an outpost inside Umm Al Kheir, and in a small victory, an Israeli court issued an injunction preventing the settlers from moving in, but the settlers moved in anyway in defiance of the court order. This is just the latest of what Umm Al Khair's residents have had to endure. And despite all of this, Umm Al Khair's residents have remained steadfast in their struggle to stay on their land. This is not just about structures or buildings, it's about families, their history, their right to live safely on the land that they legally own. Many families have held titles to their land since the 1960s. And with that, I'm honored to introduce Eid Hadalin, a father, artist, advocate, and photographer from Umm Al Khair. Eid has lived through the destruction that he's speaking against. In June 2024, the Israeli army demolished his home, giving his family just 30 minutes to gather their belongings. And despite all of these personal losses, Eid continues advocating for his village and communities across the West Bank. Eid, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Nisreen. Thank you, dear Leila, for hosting me and let me talk to my friends and clarified what's happening here in the West Bank. Our village, Umm Al Kheir, located in South Hebron Hills, and it's get a lot of attention by Israeli authorities since long time ago. We face a lot of intimidation and human rights abuse all these years. But in the last few months, we have much violence by settlers, much violence by the army, much violence by the police, and the killing of Ode is the beginning of this very, very daily harassment against us. And since then, settlers they built their new neighborhood nearby Umm Al Khair community inside the land, inside the village itself. They built it just inside the village, which just few meters away from the community center and the center of the village. And let's bring two families of settlers living there. And then when we go to the Israeli court and we get the decision to take them out, basically they just bring all these massive demolition orders in a revenge way from the community of Umm Al Khair. And we believe it's a political step by these settlers who lead the parliament and lead the government in Israel. This settler who called Sri Sakut is a very radical right-wing settler, Knesset member. He visited us just 2 days before these orders came to Umm Al Khair, and he a threat, and he's videoed basically while he's threatening to expel Umm Al Khair community from their place. Just 2 days after his visit, we surprised by the civil administration's team who arrived to the village, escorted by IDF soldiers, and they began putting these 14 orders on the houses of the village, including this community center and the greenhouse, and also which multiple things will be demolished in one. And that's the thing. And we have until November 10th. That's the final date for these orders. And since after that, we don't know what to do. We have a huge fear from the Israeli army and from the Israeli authority to come here anytime and do this massive demolition against these homes. And if it's happened, means 100 people will lose their homes and will be homeless without shelter. And we have winter, in the on the gate here in the South Hebron Hills area. Other thing that we do the legal side with the lawyers, and yet we didn't receive any results from them. They say, okay, we work on this, but this is not that enough to hold and stop this, massive destruction for Umm Al Kheir.
Of general context, and then we can discuss what you all can do and answer any questions that you all have. So, in terms of a little bit of background on how the situation has even come to be and how uh, these kinds of are even allowed to come about. If we look at the Oslo Accords, it divided the West Bank into three administrative zones, right? And this was an arrangement that was meant to be temporary and set to gradually kind of be passed on to full Palestinian control and conclude in 1999 once final status negotiations were concluded, and a comprehensive peace accord was signed, but it became the status quo. So areas A and B are under Palestinian civil control, but Israel retains full external security control. And area C, which is 62% of the West Bank, contains the majority of the land's natural resources and agricultural land that remains under exclusive Israeli military control. So Palestinians like Eid and residents of Umm Al Kheir are directly administered by the Israeli Coordinator of Government Activities in the Territories, COGAT, a unit of the Israeli military, right, or a unit of the Israeli Ministry of Defense. So since Palestinians are subject to this administration have no ability to vote, no legal recourse to influence it. This is basically like military dictatorship over the West Bank. And Palestinian families they themselves in kind of like a catch-22. If a family or a community wants to build structures, a school, greenhouses, community center, they need Israeli military approval. And less than 1% of permits that are applied for are granted. So it's nearly impossible. Palestinians who try to build in Area C are subject to demolition orders. Even when these demolition orders are not immediately acted on, say the community goes to court and gets an injunction for the demolition order, the orders never really go away. And so when villages in Area C file master zoning plans, they receive no answer, right? It leaves communities in this limbo. And this is part of a larger strategy of what international organizations and the UN are calling a coercive environment. There's a coercive environment in Area C of the West Bank where Palestinian communities are being displaced from their land, right? Because of the prevention of Palestinian building and planning, right? So this building permit infrastructure that prevents Palestinians from building on their land, from flourishing in their communities. But simultaneously, and this is exactly what we're seeing in Umm Al Kheir, we also see settler harassment, settler violence from both settlements, which are illegal under international law, but also from settler outposts, which are illegal even under Israeli law. And what's really concerning is that this settler violence and harassment is actually effective at accomplishing their goal and forcing Palestinians out of Area C and into the city centers, leaving vast land areas open for Israeli settlement expansion. Aid, maybe you can tell us about the settler outpost that was put into Umm Al Kheir.
Yeah, this is being just very new. It's just since they murdered Oud in the site, they began this excavation nearby the village. They say, okay, it's a blue line area. I mean, it's the state land, but it's all these laws which created by state of Israel means state land. private land, buffer zone, closed military zone, all these excuses, all these kind of laws which created by the system in Israel, the mainly goal for this just to give and take the land and give it to the settlers. That's mean the whole blue line area is now controlled by civil settlers, not the state itself. And the state of Israel never gave state land, never divided between settlers and Palestinians. And here we have the separation role which Israel do in the occupied territories. Means now in Umm Al Kheir there is a small part nearby the road. Where is the entrance? The state land get inside nearby the village, just few meters. I assume just 100 meters, and then no less than 100 meters, 70 meters from the road until it reaches the nearby the first house in the village in the entrance, and then it's go like like a corner, and then settlers they came in this site. They have no lack of living or something. Only they dig there, and the main idea to squeeze and siege Umm Al Khair from all sides and put them in the middle of the village, and they made life hard for families here. And then these caravans built on the night. These caravans were loaded and built on the night, and we document that. And we go to the Israeli court in Jerusalem via Michael's Sfard office, and Michael find out these buildings built illegally without permission, official permission by the civil administration. More than that, settlers built on agricultural land, which not yet declared for construction. And that's the gap that Michael find in his office. Basically, we got a decision for removing these caravans from the area and not habitat there. But in the same night, when we get the decision by the court, settlers immediately, when they find out and they get the order with the decision by the court, they bring two families in the night. They just hide them and they just smuggle them inside these caravans and put them there. Immediately they connect them with electricity while we're calling the police and the authority to came to issue the law in that side, but they never do anything to issue the law in this spot where settlers put themselves in. And not yet they give their feedback to the state about what they think about that. I mean, the state didn't give their feedback to the court about these caravans who built it in the middle of Umm Al Khair land, which they call blue line, but it's all clear that is all built without permission. It's an outpost built nearby the community center, and it's rolled to connect the old Carmel and the west side, and then will be separated both Umm Al Khair side from each other, and that's their plan. Basically, the story of this outpost means hundreds of stories in the whole area of South Hebron Hills and Umm Al Khair also. Hundred, hundred, hundred outposts built in the same way illegally, but Israeli governments legalized these outposts in the later future, and this is the story how they always keep staying and expanding.
Yeah, so you mentioned they retroactively kind of legalize these illegal settler outposts, right? Can you tell
Yes,
us a little more? Yeah, can you
yeah,
tell us
because
more about that?
we have many hilltop barns built in South Hebron Hills and also outposts which built in 1999. And since then, they are all illegal outposts, but three of them legalized by Smotrich last year, which Avigail near Atwani and Asael near south of Samoa, and also other one in the south side of South Hebron Hills. These outposts now they're growing and they are expanded and they are settlements. Means in Hebrew, this government just legalized these outposts and give them the full permission, and they are official settlements. In the beginning, they are all outposts, but now they legalize them slowly. And we afraid this outpost nearby Umm Al Khair will be legalized with years, and then will be part of Carmel neighborhoods, because we know, we believe settlers will never expelled out of these caravans, and unless this government just go away and then they elect a new government, because this government and these Knesset members who keep visiting these caravans, they want just to legitimize these caravans and let them, stay here because they connect them with electricity and water and everything in the main night while the decision from the court go out.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Arid. What I'll do is I'll give everyone here, while we have you all, um, kind of your call to action, what you can be doing, and then we'll open the floor for questions. So, in terms of just a little bit of context on the approach, Rebuilding Alliance, one of the first things that we did as an organization was build a school in Al Aqaba. It's a small village in the West Bank in Area C, and we did this in 2003. And we started reaching out to Congress after that kindergarten, along with almost the entire village, received demolition orders. And our approach was to appeal to friends of Israel in Congress and ask them to weigh in. And we've seen this be very effective in preventing demolitions from happening. So hopefully this approach will be effective for Umm Al Kheir. And I understand that it might feel more difficult in the current political climate to have a lot of faith that this will work. But I want to urge you all to remember that appeals to the humanity of others will always be something that, if you're able to touch someone's heart and you're able to really appeal to the humanity of others, it can be effective. We have seen that mounting attention on a specific village, on specific structures, that can change the calculus, right? We've seen this work in the past. So when multiple members of Congress are making calls to the State Department and the Israeli embassy asking about a village, a school, a family home, we have seen that attention and that scrutiny serve as a form of protection for the community. So Senator Feinstein sent letters to Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2015 and 2016, and that served as a form of protection for the villages of Susia and Umm Al Kheir. One of the last things that she did before she passed in 2024 was send another letter that ultimately kept two schools standing. Representative Speer led a letter several years ago that resulted in a March 2023 Supreme Court decision that guarantees a Jerusalem family the right to live in their home after 32 years of court petitions. This is also not a partisan issue. Don Bacon's staff, who had connections in the Israeli army, made calls that ultimately prevented the demolition of schools in Masafer Yatta. So this approach, it can work. So we have written a template for you all, which I will put in the chat. And the template letter basically asks for your members of Congress to make two calls on your behalf to the Israeli embassy and to the US State Department, asking for Ambassador Huckabee to engage with his counterparts in the Israeli government to press for the safety and the right of people in Umm Al Kheir to live on their land. It also asks to press for the government of Israel to uphold legal obligations and to assure that the settlers in the illegal Israeli outpost in Umm Al Kheir be removed in compliance with the court order that Reid talked to us about. So we've seen this approach work, but what it does take is multiple offices and multiple calls to the State Department, multiple calls to the Israeli embassy. Um, One other note that I will make is when sending these letters to your members of Congress, in order to get around the algorithm things, the best thing to do is to actually change the letter a little bit. So whether that is writing an introduction of who you are, the other things that you care about, putting in the community that you represent, putting just a few sentences at the beginning, changing the letter in some way that can get around some of the algorithms and avoid them getting batched together. And then making calls can also be really effective. But the thing to note is that this has to be multiple. right? So you send your letter, but you also need to get your family, your friends, your circle, for everyone to send their letters in order for that attention to be for the offices to feel like, okay, a significant portion of our constituency are really calling for this. We will make these calls. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so we have a question here from the Q&A from Derry. I'm speaking with my representative this morning. Is there anything specific the community wants me to mention or address? Aid, is there anything specific you want the representatives of the U.S. government to know?
Yes, we have our message to them just to because they have the influence on the Israelis and barely the whole community of Umm Al Kheir just depend now after the legal side depend on their messages to their congressionals and to their representative. This is what we need now. We need people to focus to freeze the demolition in Umm Al Khair and leave this peaceful community to live their life because they have a lot of harassment and violence along these years. And nowadays, Israel focused just to demolish these homes and it should be saved somehow. And only we know, as you mentioned, Shri, in the beginning, the thing that we need to urge all these parts together to just send messages to the Israelis and talk to them and tell them what's the story and why you want to demolish and erase this part of the village in this time of year. And we just this is the message that we need to freeze these demolitions. That's the goal, I believe, and stop settler violence, which came in one line with this, with this harassment, basically.
Yeah, thank you, Reed. I see there's another hand. I'm going to allow Rochelle to speak.
I'm sorry. Hi. Um, I wanted to know about specific senators like Merkley, Van Hollen, Welch, and Congresswoman Tlaib. Do you have contact with them? And, how can we coordinate, um, you know, advocacy with them? We need advocacy from a lot of different states, but they're already on our page. So why not work with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We are in touch with those offices, and it is a good strategy to continue working with offices that have been very engaged on this. One thing I will say is if these are not necessarily your members, one thing that will increase the number of offices that are actually taking action is to, as a constituent, you have the most pull in your offices, in the offices where
I
you are
know.
a constituent. Yeah, so if you are able to engage your offices, another thing that it does is it changes the calculus on the Israeli side, right? So they're used to getting calls from Welch's office. They're used to getting calls from
Yeah.
Plate. It
But
doesn't necessarily,
that's not my question. My question is, how can we all get together to, you know, advocate with those offices that are on our side? I know the problem with advocating in New Jersey, and it's the New Jersey activists. They don't care about this situation. They don't understand it. It's basically me and three others advocating with Kim and Booker, who I have a long relationship with. But it can't be just me and three other people. We have the second largest Palestinian community in the United States, fourth largest Arab community. And I think overall, between pro-Palestinian, it's probably 100, 150,000 that could, advocate for this. We're not. I may have a chance to advocate with these groups. I don't know. They're taking their time. They don't feel that it's urgent.
yeah.
So that's a problem I have to take care of in my state. Um, but
I'm I'm
I
happy
would
to,
like to work with people who are already advocating and see that we have to move forward with this.
Yeah, the points that you're making all make a lot of sense to me. I will send you my email address, and why don't we set up a follow-up so we can strategize together? Because I think it will take
Very good.
a little more, a little more than we have time for this. But yes,
Yes.
I'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, we have one more question. Well, we have a question from Laura. When this is happening broadly across the West Bank, is the best approach to focus on only one village? I think this one would be for you, Nasreen.
Yeah, so I would always pair our asks together, right? Pair those asks together. When we focus on one village, it makes the ask a little bit easier for offices, right? So if an office gets a call about a specific village, about 14 specific demolition orders, they will follow up on it. For office requests for larger strategy, I think that it's very important to continue asking for that and to always ask for this one specific village and all the rest, right? Pair those two things together. But often when you focus on the hyper specific, you're able to get further with congressional offices, unfortunately. But it just strategy wise, you're more likely to get a response. I also see another question about seeing a map of Umm Al Kheir. Maybe someone else from our team can pull that up.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Another question we have is, does it work to contact Israeli consulates in our communities as well as our elected officials? So in I don't know if we've ever done that, but
I'm not sure. I would have to look into that and into the specific powers that Israeli consulates have, but that's a good question. I will put our email in the chat for anything that we're not able to answer now. We can follow up with you.
yeah, and then Pat says, I was in Al Kheir in 2015 and 2016 and met with the lovely children who are making their pinwheels for peace. Can you tell us a little bit more about the people, the children who live there? Do they go to school? Can they grow food, graze your sheep, have enough water? Raid, I think this one would be for you. Just tell us more and how current living situation is in Umm Al Kheir for water, sheep, and your food and your children.
Yeah, thank you. Listen, since years we have life going very well, only if we avoid home demolition and settler violence and intimidation in the way to the school. But nowadays, because we have since 3 years ago, these hilltop shepherds who were shepherding nearby Umm Al Kheir on the way to the school, and now this outpost who set up nearby the road which lead to the school. Since October 7th, we have lack of working, people not working in Israel, people forbidden from permissions to enter to work there. Our economic crisis, which also bubbled the Palestinian Authority itself, and also now teachers have no salary and they do strikes. Most of the days, children not go to the school. They do 3 days school in the public Palestinian schools in the West Bank, and then they sit down the other days. They keep them in their home. Yeah, life is very hard for families here in the occupied territories, especially people who live in Area C under the occupation control, and they should face all these, economic difficulties. Farmers, they lost their lands for grazing, for cultivating, for plowing. People lost also their seasons in olive harvest. This means most of these families lost their income, and this has made the life harder for these families to just survive in these conditions. Barely sometimes families depend on some aids here or there from foreign, societies, foreign NGOs, but that's not enough sometimes because the economic situation is the spine for resistance in these areas. even if it's Al Kheir or in Masafir Yatta and South Hebron Hills in general. And then settlers have the full support, and then this means some families will be displaced, like the Zanuta, for example, who displaced because of settler violence, and they lost their whole flocks, sheep, and also their agricultural land. Children of Umm Al Kheir facing also the settler violence because settler just live nearby Umm Al Kheir Community Center, which we try to raise these children in a very quiet, protective environment. But because these children saw settler violence day and night, and that's not that easy mission to for the parents and the families to sustainable their life in this condition while the occupation just following with all these like sanctions which came together by the occupation against the families who live in area C and settler violence which is spread all over around these families.
Thank you, Aid. We have more questions. Is there a place we can get images of Umm Al Khair, the community center, and the garden to use in our advocacy? I know you are a photographer, Aid. Is there anywhere you put your photos other than in group chats and a place where people can get them or we can send them a link?
Yeah, we will bring you pictures for very soon.
Okay. And then this one, maybe for Nasreen. I've written to Senator Padilla. Is Schiff open to hearing as well? I can say I'm a constituent in California and we've been speaking to Schiff. I think they're both very movable. I don't know if you have any more insight, Nasreen.
Yeah, I would say that generally speaking, and I've been doing this for the past almost 4 years, if not over 4 years now. Generally, people are more willing to take interventions that are very, very specific. So even when you feel like a senator or a representative is unmovable or unwilling to help with something, the smaller the ask, especially coming from a constituent, the more likely they are to at least try. And one thing that I would encourage all of you to like the framing for it is you can say that I understand, say that it feels like they're unmovable. You can tell them, I understand that maybe you aren't willing to sign this other legislation or you aren't willing to or there's political considerations about publicly coming out and about XYZ or whatever, but please do all that you can back channeling. Please make private calls to the State Department and the Israeli embassy. Please make private calls on my behalf, asking about this village, expressing concern, pushing for the safety of these residents, making the argument that this is not in the best interests of anyone involved. And typically that does work. People are, I haven't really received that much negative feedback or, people don't usually say no to that. I see. Go ahead.
Okay, we have one more. I think this one goes with the last one. I think you sort of answered it. If we're in states with hardcore pro-Israel senators, should we instead contact other senators, even if we're not their constituents? Um, I
I
think
would say, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
I would just say you should still, let your senators know that there are people that care about this and their constituents care about this, and and like hold them accountable. Nasreen.
Yeah, I would echo what Leila said. I think that I'm not going to discourage you from talking to other senators, but I think first and foremost, talk to your senators. And the framing for you can be this is actually in the best interest of Israel also, right? So if they're pro-Israel, that's not a reason to not be doing these kinds of actions. That's not a reason you know, to not make these calls. So I would encourage you to push your senators and emphasize the fact that this is a specific ask, emphasize that this is something that they can do privately, emphasize that this is actually in the best interest of Israel.
Yeah. Another one, Margaret said that they're talking at their church this Sunday about Palestine. Your explanatory remarks at the beginning about the history of the different areas was helpful. Can you write it up, or is there a web page with more background? Yes, if you see the email in our in the chat, you can email us and we can send you some of that stuff. And Nasreen's also typing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you can also follow up with us. I'll put our email in the chat.
It's in the chat. But yes, an anonymous attendee said, um, tell us if you can see how the Israeli government actions are restricting assistance you're able to get from humanitarian actors. So, is it visible in Umm Al Kheir that there's been less funding, less access, and Israeli blocking people like NGOs and the UN and other activists from getting to Umm Al Kheir? Have you been seeing that increase recently, or is it the same as it always has been?
It's not always been, it's just a new strategy by them in the last few weeks and few months since they established this outpost and since they murdered Ode in the site. They began this kind of closing and abusing the activists while they coming here, even activist individuals or NGOs who come to see what people need and want to help them. Sometimes they blocking the entrance and they stop people for a couple of hours, checking their passports, and then you know, detain them for at least 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to just to make these people who visit first time, made them afraid to come back. And then these people, some of them didn't come back because they're afraid you will be detained or will be arrested or somehow. Yeah, we saw this, we saw increase in this kind of act by the Israeli army and by Israeli settlers who do their duty, in their settlement sites, like this rapid response unit who wants to stop priests from entering Umm Al Kheir, and they tell them, lies about the community and lies about the people of Masaf Riyata in general, that they are pro-terrorists and blah blah blah. All these lies they put in the face of the new visitors, and these people stand by this act by the army and then say, "Oh, Palestinians pro-terrorists, don't come back here again." It's all fake and lies by these settlers who wear army uniform and stand in these checkpoints, or they roll with these security cars all the time. We don't put any tension for this, but we need to be careful from this kind of acts. But we saw it increasing in the area of South Hebron Hills, very much in the recent month.
Okay, thank you. What about somebody's asking about the pressure on the media? I know media comes in and out of Umm Al Khair. There's reporters, Palestinian reporters, international reporters. Have you been seeing an increase in media? Is the media landscape, what do you see can be done for further coverage of this issue? This question can be to either of you.
I don't know, Aid, if you have insights on how media attention has impacted the village.
Yes, I mean the media role is very important for taking this story out. Sometimes in years before, I mean, 10 years ago, there is no much media on the area of Umm Al Khair and other villages in around here, and that's give Israelis much space to act against us. But nowadays, I saw very good intervene by media in these areas, Umm Al Khair and also the area of South Hebron Hills, basically, which increased so much after no other lands screening and after the winning of the Oscar. And I am part of these friends who do this incredible work. We saw a lot of media focus in South Hebron Hills, and we visited every day by media in Umm Al Khair and other villages. This is very good, and we need to do more about the media stuff and bring more, like this famous media and who is listened and heard by the international community and by the people abroad and so on. And also Palestinian, also domestic media is doing very well done job. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible work by media, but now we need the intervention by the politicians in this time.
Yeah. I'm going to go through a few of the comments just quickly. For people who may feel that the Department of State is now hopeless, I recently read that Secretary of State Rubio, a strong Christian Zionist and staunch supporter of the government of Israel, was furious because he was learning about prejudice and bad treatment of Christians. If he hears this, he may act. I think that that is a very good point. So, kind of raising it in that framework, we've seen that also be effective. Another comment. Hello, Eid. I visited Umm Al Kheir in February when the fence was knocked down behind the community center and the camera put up that looks into people's houses. I'm so sorry things have grown worse. I'm in California. Senator Schiff has close ties with Israel. Have you had luck talking with him? What approach would you suggest when reaching out? So, I don't know if Reid specifically has met with Senator Schiff, and I'll leave that open for you if you want to say anything to that. But in terms of on our side, we're happy to strategize with you along with other constituents. It sounds like there are multiple people who are kind of talking about Schiff. But I think that the framing of like friends don't let friends drive drunk, the framing of weighing in as a friend of Israel, that can be really impactful. There's someone else in the chat put that this is something that can combat anti-Semitism. Like action from these offices is actually something that will help Jewish people also. I think that all of those frameworks and all of those approaches can be very effective with congressional offices. So, if you want to specifically work on outreach in your district alongside us, please email us and we'll be in touch. Um, There's another comment. I'm so sorry about these terrible hardships. Many thousands of us in the US are advocating for Palestinians. We just need to get this news out. Constituency in California, we can follow up with you. Are there Palestinian Christians in Umm Al Kheir?
You mean activists here in the area?
I don't know if maybe just tell us if there is a Christian presence, activists or residents.
Yeah, we have multiple nationalities here in Umm Al Khair making protective prison. Many of them, we have a good number of people, but they are for international, advocate who came and stay as a protective prison. He and them, it's not that much, powerful in front of Israeli army brutality if they came to harass and uh, act in a violent way against them because they are international activists and they could just deport them immediately from the area. Also, we have Israeli activists who stay in the village with these international activists because Israelis they have much privilege to talk and argue with the army and the police much more than international activists. And also, me, I can't do that either, like the internationals, because I am the weak part in this, and I could be arrested even just if I talk to them. But we have a very good presence from activists from abroad, different nationalities, and that's very helpful.
Yeah. Aid, your last name is the same as Auda Hadalin, who was murdered this summer. Was he a relative? I joined the webinar a few minutes after this started. If you already spoke about this, I apologize. If not, can you talk about him?
Yes, Aude is my cousin. He's a young activist. He just raised nearby me, and I know him since he was a child. And he died in 31 years old he's a teacher for English in school of Umm Al Kheir, and also father of three boys. Audi is also an activist, same like me, and he always welcoming, people and advocate to them about what happening here in the area. And he killed in a very brutal way by settler violence. And this settler who killed him is free. Since he killed him, he's free. And it's a big loss for the community of Umm Al Khair. And not today, until today, we have no justice for Audi. And we try to just try with lawyers, but it's not yet come to the light. And there is no justice if it's on Palestinians' lives. They can shot dead in the daylight, and then the settlers go without any accountability about that, and they go home freely after that, and they keep their lives as nothing happened. It's a big loss, and yeah, it's one of the saddest stories of Umm Al Khair.
Yeah, we have a few additional questions. Does anyone have advice on activating people, especially leadership in Jewish spaces that claim to be against the occupation but remain silent and inactive? So there might be some other people on the call that would also have things to say on this. But what I would say in terms of activating leadership in that way is to pull together a coalition of, say, Jewish people to meet with the representative or the senator and to emphasize the things that you have in common, to emphasize that, we're coming to you as Jewish people, for example. And I think, again, the approach of bringing something that is tangible and small, that can usually get you further with offices like this. Um, it the more specific and the smaller of an ask, the more likely they are to engage. And I do believe that there is an invaluable education that they gain from doing these smaller actions, right? The more times that they actually take action in these small ways, the more they become invested in the outcomes of these communities. So I'll never forget early on in my time with Rebuilding Alliance, we met with an office maybe 3 times in a row asking for intervention on specific like homes and schools. And the third time that we met with the office, the staffer asked me, like, how can I stop meeting with you? Like, no offense, how can I stop meeting with you? And it kind of got to a point where they were starting to see the structural issues that underlie all of these things that are happening. And once they start to ask those questions, or once they're invested in that structural problem, that's when they can really start to push things forward. But if you feel like your member is silent and inactive, really encouraging them to do like baby steps, smaller, ask them to do more small things. And hopefully you'll see them kind of taking more leadership on this in the future. Um,
There's a question here from Chaim. Yeah, can you give us an update on Hanadi and her children? How are they doing? How are they coping? Yeah.
Yeah, they traumatized until now. I mean, I saw all the children every day, and his wife also in a very, very hard condition. Really, she's in a trauma until today because what happened is just impact everybody, and mainly her, because she's the killed in this brutality, and his little children's. Watan is 6 years old, and Muhammad is 3 years old, and Kinan is just 9 months old. He's just a little one. And it's heartbreaking when you saw these children rolling around without their father, who always take them everywhere he go and bought them everything they want. Everybody just take care of them. But it's a gap. That's this kid. I mean, 6 years old, was and always asking, "Where's my father?" That's the brutality of the occupation. There is no description for this while this boy asking me this question and I can't answer him. And his mother in a shock. She's in a trauma, this young lady. And God's know how she sleep. She can't sleep sometimes in the night. She tried to sleep. She traumatized and the whole community traumatized. Audu mother, for example, she's a lady 60 years old. She just hospitalized for 1 week after his death because she can't bear what happened to her youngest son. I mean, and the killer is not accountable, and he just go free with his children, and it's really very hard. But we try. Everybody, there's a lot of activists and girls from activists. They just stand with Hanadi. They go with her. They stay with her all the time. People just taking care for her very well, and we try, all of us, to just take this family out of this trauma slowly, because it's long time in this condition. It's not easy to bear what happened to Audi.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Not we're gonna take a couple more questions, and then in the respect for Eid's time, we're gonna call it at the hour. There's a question here that I'm a California constituent. I'm Latina. What is being done to reach out to this constituency in California? I'm not exactly sure, but I think what could be done is to sort of start building solidarity coalitions between the Arab American community and the Latino community in California. A lot of the things that are happening to the Latino community, Palestinians have dealt with in their own capacity, and it might be a good place to build solidarity and sort of cross-community coalitions to fight back. So that's, I guess, my best advice in terms of that. I don't know if Nasreen has anything to add, but
Yeah, and if you would like more kind of strategizing, we're happy to meet with you and think through how best to engage your community.
yeah, so please, if you want to, our email is in the chat. If you email advocacy@rebuildingalliance.org, both Nasreen and I will receive the email, and so will the rest of our team, and we can set up a strategizing call and sort of see what can be done. Okay, Margaret's asking, do you know where the majority of the settlers are from? How many of these settlers are from the United States? I don't know if there's like a exact count, but a lot of the settlers in the West Bank, there's a big constituency of them that are not Israeli or come from Israel. They're Americans from or people from other countries who are coming to settle the land. I don't know if do you have any more experience with them?
Yes, with deep sorry, there's a lot of them came from the United States and they live here. Some of them not even born in Israel, just they do aliyah to Israel, which a program done by Israeli government, which bring these families directly from the state. They shift them to the West Bank, and there's a couple of families live in Carmel nearby. They came from the state, and we know that it's a fact. They speak in English, and once I saw them nearby the fence, and they just clear they just came from the state by their accent, and that's mean. It's very easy to shift these people from Western countries to bring them, and they live in the West Bank settlements. And this Aliyah program is worked very well in the 90s until and Israel, every time you promoting this program with many offers for these people to come from abroad to live in Israel. Basically, they came direct to live in the settlements. We have major settlements like cities in the West Bank, Peter Alit, Ariel, and Gush Etzion nearby Bethlehem. These big major cities of settlement, they are collecting a lot of Jewish American families who came from US.
Yeah, thank you, Reed. And then the second part of the question was, as a Latina constituent in California, my experience tells me that activism with the threat of losing votes, along with bad press, gets me further with more results. I would say that pressure in all of its forms is usually the way to get things moving. When it comes to engaging with congressional offices, one thing I will say based on my experience is that when you go into a meeting or when you call offices, of course, you are there to hold them accountable. Of course, especially as their constituents, that is your right. Um, but typically, offices are more likely to respond when it's framed as, I want to help you be a better representative for me. And when it's framed as, we're already on the same side, we're already operating from the same basis, we're on the same team. And then you frame it as, because we're on the same team, this is what I think you need to do to get us further. Typically, people will just be more responsive when you go into the meeting with that mindset versus kind of threatening. I will say that framing things in terms of, this is why we're voting for you, we want action, is also very effective. I think we're getting very close to the hour. Maybe we'll take one more question. Can you tell me more about the Carmel settlers? I live in Monterey County. These settlers are in Jimmy Panetta's district.
Yeah, it's for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, Carmel is it's two parts. It's agriculture and also people who have government, occupation. They work in the army, they work in the police, and they do living from these two parts of living. Mostly the Orthodox who keeping, Shabbat, and they just community who close. Yeah, this is mainly they're existing here in the area.
Yeah. I know we're at the hour now, so if there's any final words, Reed, that you would like to leave everyone with.
Yeah, thank you. Just I would remind my friends around the world and also in the US that we are a very peaceful community who love peace and love to work together. I always work for humanity and I will keep work for humanity. We are not a violent community. We are a very lovely, welcoming people with huge love for everybody, and we love everybody. We don't hate anybody, even these people who live nearby, these settlers who intimidate our life daily and night. We not hate them as humans, but they should stop, you know, uh, harassing our life daily, and they should be very normal humans. And then we can solve the conflict because the land is large and it could take everybody in it. But we should look to each other as humans, not enemies. And this is my message to everyone around the world. And also, my friends in the US, you should urge your, congressionals, also your Congress members, also State Department to stop and freeze the demolition of Umm Al Kheir. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Don't forget to email your members of Congress and make your calls as soon as you can. That's a really, these demolitions can happen as early as next Tuesday. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.